Happy Saturday, hackers. Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and as always on Saturdays, we're going to be doing some blue team work. But before we get started, we have a little bit of news updating to do. So we'll get started with This Week in Cyber. My slides not updating? That's fun. Let's see if I can fix that. Let's see. I need to switch it to something else. Switch to night ride, then I'll switch back to stream slides. Oh, annoying. There we go. Now it's working. All right. So we'll start off with This Week in Cyber. Just a little bit of news updates, honestly. We had at the end of last week, and we reported on this last Saturday, we began with the Kaseya vulnerability, which led to now over 1,500 independent organizations getting hit with the REvil ransomware gang's flavor of Soji no Kibi ransomware. And what we now know is that this all comes down to, in terms of root cause, this all comes down to Kaseya's, hate to say it, negligence. They had a known vulnerability from 2015 in their public customer dashboard, and they left that open and available for anybody to exploit, and that's exactly what happened, allowing attackers to get into Kaseya and from there exploit their customers and move on through down into MSPs that use that software, and then of course into the customers of those managed service providers. So if we go all the way back up to Kaseya, it is really just their negligence for leaving this known vulnerability and a piece of software that was deprecated but somehow still left online open and available. And if you're noticing a pattern with these stories, if we think about Colonial Pipeline, if we think all the way back to SolarWinds, right? As scary as all of these things end up being, right, after they kind of snowball down the hill, it always begins with something dumb, something simple, something that good practices universally applied would have caught and prevented. All it takes is one slip up, right? And you have disasters like this, which is why it's security stuff, because it's working against the human instinct to take shortcuts. You can't, because the bad guys are going to find your shortcuts. The bad guys are going to find where you cut corners, and they're going to find ways to exploit it. It's, cyber badness is like water. It's going to find all the cracks. So there can't be any cracks. That's really difficult to do, but it's very rarely the case, right, that the initial compromise, the initial foothold comes from some crazy 0-day. Now, is that happening? Yes, absolutely. But the truth of the matter is that most of these massive attacks could have been prevented with universally applied good practices. Also in the news this week, we still can't seem to wake up from CVE 2021-34527, also known as Print Nightmare. Now let's recap how this went down. All the way back at the beginning of June, right? Well, not the beginning, but Patch Tuesday for June, so the second Tuesday in June, Microsoft released a patch for another CVE, 2021-1675, I believe, which addressed a privilege escalation vulnerability in their print spooler service. Now, this was by no means the first vulnerability that had been discovered in that particular service. Red teamers and bad guys have been using that spooler service to gain system privileges for years, with different vulnerabilities and different levels of patching. But 1675 didn't seem like that big of a deal until it was discovered that there was more to it. There was not, in addition to that privilege escalation, there was a potential for remote code execution, and proof of concept code was leaked for that particular exploit. And that's when it moved from a vulnerability to a 0-day. And all of a sudden, we had this massive rush to disable the print spooler service. And 2 days went by without Microsoft saying a word about this vulnerability. Finally, at the beginning of the week, Microsoft released an out-of-band patch for the vulnerability, meaning it wasn't part of their normal security roll-up, their normal Patch Tuesday updates. They said update immediately, and people who could did. Here's the thing. That patch was incomplete, and security researchers continued to poke on it and discovered that in many instances, the privilege escalation and remote code execution situations were still present. So the patch didn't actually solve the entire issue. And this is really difficult if you think about how patching processes work, because in a major organization, the patches have to be tested, right? They have to go through a validation process to make sure that it doesn't break anything else that's going on in the business or the organization. That has to all be validated before it's deployed universally. So if you have a bad patch in there and then you deploy it, and then you have another one coming in, you have to start that whole process again. And of course, another day or so went by before we had an update to the patch, which there was eventually toward the end of the week from Microsoft. Now, this was just kind of a rough situation for everybody involved. I don't want to cast aspersions on the Microsoft research team. I think this was a really complicated situation, and it was difficult to figure out exactly what was going on. And then, of course, there was some reports even after the second patch that remote code execution, privilege escalation was possible in certain situations. That seems to have been resolved at this point. Things seem to have quieted down, according to Microsoft at least. The current version of the patch addresses all known versions of the issue. There's some situations in which you might have to disable a feature known as point and print, which I'd never heard of before, to completely mitigate this entire threat. But it seems like things are sorted out now. But this does speak to, I think, if we want to look for a big picture takeaway here, it speaks to a couple of things. First, why we need vendors to be on top of their security game and what happens and the frustration that occurs when they are not. That's part one. Part two is there was real value being provided by independent researchers in this situation. It was important, certainly to me, and I think to others in my position, in positions like mine as security analysts, that we were able to say, okay, well, Microsoft is saying this, but we have independent research with evidence that this is not the case, right? That the patch is incomplete. And we were able to provide better guidance to, our operators because of that independent research. So that community really, really mattered in this case. It made the mitigation process better because we had more information than just what the vendor was saying. And I mean, if you know me a little bit, you know that I don't really trust vendors at all. I hold all commercial software, all software, but certainly commercial software at arm's length. And I don't always believe that enterprise support is all that it's cracked up to be. And I think that in this case, everybody makes mistakes, and with a code base as large as Microsoft's, you're bound to whiff a few times, and this is one of those times. So I do think you need many eyes, as many as possible, on these updates, and I'm glad we had it in this particular case. It would have been cool if the exploit hadn't been leaked in the first place, but what are you going to do? All right, so today we're diving back into Splunk. We have a couple of sources for this. We're going to try to dive back into those higher level questions on the Splunk Boss of the SOC Level 2 room on TryHackMe. But before we do that, we're going to finish up the Splunk track in Rangeforce. We have one more session in there that I want to go over, which is alerting. And I think that's really important if you're working in a SOC and you want to set up Splunk to work for you. So let's go ahead and get started there. All right, here we are back in Rangeforce. Let's get some music back. Nice and quiet, or quiet enough, I hope. If the sound levels aren't good, let me know. I should also mention, I don't know if Rangeforce has it up on their main page, but there's another Rangeforce community challenge coming up. Let's see if we can look for it. The Rangeforce Persistence challenge is coming up, I think, next week. Yeah. That's from Reddit. But the Rangeforce Persistence Challenge is going to be a blue team focus challenge that goes through kind of incident response, it seems like, right? From initial foothold all the way through C2, exfil, and of course persistence. And so we'll be certainly tackling that on this stream. And if you want to participate, it is going to be a free module on Rangeforce. So you can go ahead and sign up for a Rangeforce account and participate along with us. How was everybody's week? Hopefully not too crazy. Hopefully you didn't have patching nightmares. Bad weather here in the east. Yeah, Gromit, I've seen that. Crazy flooding in New York. All sorts of storms all over the place. Really, really rough stuff. I often say that I miss thunderstorms, but I do not miss that. All right, here we go. We're in our Linux environment here, and we're going to create some alerts. Let's get started. It's hot. You know, I'm in Los Angeles. We're spared the worst of it because of the marine layer. We have the way that Los Angeles works. The city is sort of in this basin surrounded by a couple of mountain ranges, right? So ocean air kind of comes in, gets trapped. That's bad news for air quality often because the CO2 and like NO2 emissions get caught. We get this kind of inversion layer, but it also means that ocean air kind of keeps the worst of the heat at bay. Folks in the San Fernando Valley, the San Gabriel Valley are getting hammered though. Really, really, really hot out there. And of course, throughout the Southwest. Rough stuff indeed. All right, let's so we're gonna create an alert here for SSH logins, failed SSH logins. Okay. So let's go ahead and log in to the Splunk lab. I'm gonna just, this is such a pet peeve of mine on Ubuntu or all Linux, right? When you fire up Chromium at first in GNOME, you have the default menu, default window decorations, and you just want to right click and use system title bar and borders, and now it looks like an actual web browser. What's happening? That was my Vimium extension, not knowing what to do with this. So I have an extension called Vimium that I use to allow me to navigate with Vim keyboard shortcuts on websites. But when you're doing one of these kind of interactive things, it really messes it up. All right, so I believe it's admin and Rangeforce if it's the same as it was before. Okay. And all right, we're logged in. What do they want us to do next? Right, we're gonna look for source type auth match string failed. Let me zoom this in a little bit so that it's visible. Too much. Source type equals auth, great, and then we'll look for failed. And I think last 24 hours should be okay for now. They may disagree. Nope, that looked okay. Before creating the alert, it's important to understand the options you are presented with. Explanation of the key options in the alert menu, title, permissions, alert type. Right, permissions are about other users in the Splunk instance. All right. Figure out the alert options we'll be using. So we're talking about an alert for fails. If we want to go save as alert, that's kind of where we're going here. All right, so did they specify the title? Because I like to be very descriptive with my titles. That's not always everybody's preference, but so the reason I like, yeah, descriptive alerts, because when they come in, you want to know exactly what you need to be concerned about. All right, if we're the only one who's supposed to see this alert, the permissions are going to be private. So that's the answer to that question. Which alert type should you choose for the alert to run with a certain interval? That would be schedule. And if it's going to be 24 hours, it should be a daily situation. You don't want to sleep on SSH fails, right? If they're spiky. Oh, we're going to do every 2 minutes. What is the cron schedule expression for running the alert every 2 minutes? Woof. Okay. So that would be... Let's see. Let's go back here. Run on cron schedule. Hey, Angel. Good to see you. Oh, nice. I am so glad that you're getting a vacation. So we're going to do this run on a cron schedule. Time range lasts 24 hours. I don't know why we do it every 2 minutes if it's the last 24 hours, but whatever. Now, here's the deal. Cron syntax is, you know, if you do it all the time, you'll keep it in your head. But if you don't, then it's kind of a pain. There's a really cool site that I use constantly called crontab.guru that helps me out with this. It's an alert schedule, Angel, yeah. So crontab.guru will give you kind of a, first of all, like a real human description of the cron schedule. And it will also just remind you of the sequencing of the intervals that you have options for in cron syntax. So it's minute, hour, day of month, month, and day of week. So if we, and there's some other stuff you can do that's special there. You can see down here, there's dashes and things like that, right? So if it's at every minute, that's not good. Here, I see at minute 2, but that's not actually that's minute 2. So it'd be like 7:02, 8:02. That's not actually what I want. Is OSCP required for security analyst? I see some doing it. That's a good question, though. So I would say that for if you want to be a security analyst, no, it's not. It is definitely focused, as Angel said, on pen testing. It's definitely focused on, yeah, offensive tactics. And I absolutely agree that you knowing offensive tactics is really, really, really valuable. I am an analyst, but I've also sort of worked my way into basically being a purple teamer. Like I am my team's pen tester, for lack of a better term, where I'm running, you know, attacks against our stuff because we want to test and harden our defenses. And it's really, really important to be able to have that capability on even a blue team. But if we're really like laser focusing into SOC analysis, right? You're working in a SOC, then that's going to be a little bit more on, you know, what we're doing right now, like looking at Splunk, looking at understanding how Windows internals work. There's going to be some overlap at that operating system level, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit less of like using Metasploit or understanding how to do brute force attacks, things like that. It's going to be a little bit more about recognizing what the attacks look like. But again, I'll go back to my martial arts background here. I think it's really, really silly to learn how to defend without learning how to strike. You know, like you would never have. This is like my hot take on why Aikido is no good, but like you're not going to be able to defend well unless you understand how strikes happen. Right? You can't have a full defensive art that's just blocks. Doesn't work. And understanding the mechanics involved in throwing strikes allows you to defend against them and move around them. Yeah, blocking a punch without getting punched would be super weird. So, but the OSCP certification, I mean, I think we're kind of going into the theory here. The OSCP certification is not going to be like a blocker if you're applying for SOC analyst positions, right? That's not really what those are going to be looking for. You're going to be looking at things like the CompTIA Security Plus, the SA Plus security analyst certifications, maybe some of the blue team offerings from eLearn Security, right? The THP V2, which is the threat hunting professional certification, the CIH, the incident handler one. Those are sort of the more defensive focused certifications, and there are fewer of them, absolutely, but those are the ones you might want to look for. And then once you're in the industry for a couple of years, you might want to think about the CISSP, just to get that under your belt and have that kind of like that accolade, which does open some doors as well. Yeah, having it is not bad. I'm not at all saying that it is bad. But I'm just saying, like, from a hiring manager standpoint, like, what do you need to get past filters? If you're looking at an actual SOC analyst role, that's going to be less of a filter there. And also, OSAP, man, it's expensive as hell. I don't know. The way that the OSCP is structured, and I know that some of you are working on it, like, I don't want to ding your efforts. I think that you should go for what you want to go for. I specifically have problems with the way that offensive security handles its certification process. Okay. So if we want to do every 2 minutes, right? Minute 2, this is not actually what we want, right? But if we do, what is it? Step values. There you go. At every second minute from 2 through 59. So that's going to be 2 minutes. That's our step values right there. But it may not, it's non-standard. It may not work with every cron. There you go. We'll try this here. We'll see if that's what they were after. No, it is not. Amazing. I did not look at that hint before clicking on that, but apparently they were sending us to the same site that I was using anyway. Did they actually mean this anyway? Yeah, that's just not right. Opinion on BTL1 or eLearn security certs. I'm not super familiar with the BTL1, but I am very familiar with the eLearn security, so I'll take that one. I really like them. I like them a lot. I like the... To be honest with you, I like them more before the INE stuff. But the certification process is phenomenal. The courseware is excellent. I find the testing environment to be very real world. And the material in the courses, even provided through INE, is excellent. The content is fantastic. I don't like the literal courseware that much. I find it very clunky. I don't like that I have to look at PDFs within their embedded PDF viewer. I find their website to be unbelievably slow. And until recently, I had no idea where the community page was for the forums to work on the labs. I thought all of that was kind of a little bit ham-handed. But the actual content, once you get past all of that, is really, really rock solid. I have 2 eLearn security certifications. I have the, ironically, they're offensive certs. I have the EJPT, the Junior Penetration Tester, and the WPT, the Web Application Penetration Tester. And I'm studying through others, right? I'm studying through the material for the Threat Hunter certification, which looks really, really good, but it's intense, so I'm taking my time studying for that one. And the next level, the Pen Testing Professional certification, which involves things like binary exploitation and things like that. So it's kind of a little bit more than just the web app stuff. But yeah, I really like them. And I think they're getting more and more recognized. They don't yet have the DoD, what is it? I forget the DOT, A720, I forget what the regulation is. But Security Plus does. So if you have like the Security Plus and then you go for these other certifications, I think it's a good stand-in for things like the OSCP. Okay. See, I don't want that. Show me every 2 minutes. Oh, it was just */2. So we were close. I was just being too explicit. Very good. Okay. It's time to create the alert. Oh, they do give us specific instructions on the alert that they want us to make. The title is going to be SSH failed. Permissions private, schedule, cron, time range, relative 2 minutes ago, which makes more sense. What you do, it would not be reasonable to alert on the events for the last 24 hours every 2 minutes. You know what I mean? So we want to do earliest 2 minutes ago. That's how we want to make that happen. I recently learned Splunk and started with cybersecurity boss of the SOC version 1. Is it very advanced? No, I think that it's deep is what it is. The boss of the SOC version 1 is a deep, deep dive into what you can do with Splunk. If it's your first encounter with an environment that has a lot of logs in it, a lot of events from different sources, it's going to feel overwhelming. Yeah, so you can do it through Cyber Defenders, yeah. It's also available on TryHackMe, I think. Maybe not. Maybe not anymore. But it's deep. So if it's your first encounter with that much data, it's going to feel really, really overwhelming. So my recommendation would be to take your time. If there are walkthroughs available that you can take a look at, don't feel like you can't look at them, right? I firmly believe that until you get your feet under you and you have some experience backing you, it's difficult to work without a guide. right? There are so many of us out here teaching ourselves how to do things, right? I'm here trying to provide knowledge, but I'm also learning stuff on my own on the side that I don't have like a teacher for, right? And if you're in that situation, I really encourage you to be kinder to yourself, right? Don't beat yourself up for like not getting it on the first try or not understanding where to go next. That's natural because you don't have a guide, right? So when you're getting started, the ability to adapt and improvise in new environments comes from experience. But if you don't have that experience, you can't really adapt and improvise that well. So when you're starting out, reading through walkthroughs to get your feet under you really, really makes sense. Angel, absolutely right. You don't want to win cheating, right? I'm not talking about like going through like earning points on TryHackMe rooms just by doing the write-ups, right? Or reading the write-ups and reproducing. You're not learning then, you're just following along. But try what you can do, and then when you get stuck, ask for guidance. That keeps you in what Vygotsky called the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is an ed theory idea where you want to be challenged but not overwhelmed, right? If you're doing stuff that's too easy, you're not learning. If you're doing stuff that you just can't handle at all, you're also not learning. You want to be at that just like exact right spot. Think of it like, you know, exercise as well, right? You want to do something that's challenging, not totally beyond your ability level. You see the walkthroughs, feel bad, you was able to solve. Yeah, that's like, I understand that feeling, being able to like get just so far without the walkthrough and then having to get to it. Be kinder to yourself. Yeah, I have this talk that I'm trying to put together for a CFP, which is like ed theory for self-learners. And one of the things that you have to know is something called metacognition, which is thinking about thinking. Once you accomplish a task, you have to go back and think to yourself like, okay, what worked, what didn't, and explain it to yourself or write it down. I really am a firm believer in writing because it forces you to order your thoughts. And so, yeah, if you do have to look up answers, explain it so that now you have it embedded, you have that memory, right? Learning is about forming neural pathways. It's forming memory connections. And the way that happens, the way that they get reinforced is you have to tell yourself that story over and over and over again. That's what ingrains it in you. It's what builds up those calcium connections between those synapses. And that's what you need in order to actually remember and be able to perform it again. Okay, let's build this alert. When the number of results is greater than 10 is going to be our trigger. Yeah, I gotta get that ed theory for hackers talk together. I think I might do it. I might submit it for Deadwood. I don't know if anyone would actually want to listen to it though. It might be like an audience of one sort of situation, but I feel like the more you know about how learning, what we know about learning, which is very little actually from a neuroscience standpoint, but the more you know about approaches people have taken to learning in the past, I think the better you can guide yourself. But I'll suppress for 5 minutes. Throttle, suppress for 5 minutes. That's what I want. So after an alert is triggered, subsequent alerts will not be triggered until after the throttle period. So if you think that through for a second, what we're really saying is you're not going to get every 2 minutes, right? If it continues to be hot, you'll get an alert every 7. Oh, I gotta change this music. I love Starcadian, but Starcadian's content ID stuff is weird, and I don't want to get muted. Read, write, do it will get you so much further than just following along. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's this pretty famous study in... You've got me going on Ed Theory now. There's this pretty famous study about note-taking, which was... And this was like really in the early days of laptops being ubiquitous on college campuses. And it was... The study basically found that all else being equal, but we'll get into a little bit more of this, people who took notes by hand retained information more than people who were taking notes on a computer. And that was the headline. That was like, oh, computers are not good for note-taking, you know, technology's the worst, what are we going to do about these kids today? As it always is. It's BS. I hate that frame of reporting. But when you dove into the research, what actually was the case is that people who were taking notes on laptops were doing it in a pretty thoughtless way. And I don't even mean they were like checking Facebook or whatever. Even if they were focused on taking notes, the problem that they were running into was that they were able to type quickly enough to essentially just transcribe what the lecturer was saying. You cannot write by hand unless you're a shorthand expert from the 60s. You cannot write quickly enough to transcribe what a speaker is saying, which forces you to synthesize what the speaker is saying and put it down. And that synthesis was what led to the retention of information, the better retention of information of the handwriting note takers. As soon as you took the typer note takers and explained to them that they needed to be synthesizing, not just transcribing, the retention differences disappeared. Whoa. Yeah, sorry about that. It looked like something... Yeah, definitely frame droppage. My apologies for that. Looks like we're back to okay now. In case you missed it, what I was saying is that once you teach the information, right, rather than just transcribe it, that retention difference goes away. Okay, we'll add to triggered alerts and low severity. Why low severity, I wonder? All right. Save that. And that should be it for this. Oh, did I not do the trigger once correctly? No, I did. With pen and paper, you need to look where you were typing at the same time, see and think of what you're typing. Yep, that's right. The manual, right? The manual act of writing requires synthesis, whereas with a keyboard, you have to be mindful about what you're doing. It's not impossible to take notes well with a keyboard. You just got to know how to do it. Why can I not save this? Invalid cron schedule. What? Oh, because it's still... There we go. We suppressed for 5 minutes. We add to trigger alerts. We did it as low severity. The title was SSH failed. What's your problem? Rangeforce. Let's go check our alerts. The alert is SSH failed, which is what the title was supposed to be. Time range last. No, that's wrong. Right? It needs to be relative 2 minutes ago. Ah, did not hit apply. There we go. Now, that's so freaking cool. I really don't know how Rangeforce does that, how they're monitoring state across all of those things, but I think it's really, really neat. Where they can monitor stuff like that and track your progress. The company's new website is up and running, seems to be acting up at times. It looks like programming errors have crept their way into the code. Oh no! And the customers have been met with internal server errors. Such issues, should they arise, should be found and dealt with. Yeah. All right, so we're going to look for basically 500s. This is an operational more than a security alert, but it's still definitely worthwhile. Okay, so the source type is access combined, and the status is going to be 500. So let's get that search going. Okay, and then the status is going to be 500. Yep, okay, that's working out. So we're creating the alert here, HTTP 500. After every single one of them? Per result, that seems like a bad idea. Yeah, don't do this. Don't make an alert for HTTP 500s that fire after every alert. You'll kill yourself. There are too many ways to make a server error occur, both, unintentionally or maliciously. If you alert on every single one of them, you're going to go bananas. Permissions private, alert real time, per result. And was there an expiration there? No. Triggered events, higher severity. And no throttling. Oh, that comes next, maybe. Yeah, that comes next. Yeah, there we go. You want one alert per broken web page. That way you won't get too many unnecessary notifications. To do this, we're going to implement throttling, but we'll throttle based on a certain field. So that means that you will only get an alert message if that field is unique. Duplicates will be throttled for a chosen time period. That's neat. Okay, so if you wish to throttle based on a certain field, we're going to throttle based on the URI path. We've completed 90% TryHackMe security analyst path. Any roadmap? Did the CCNA and SOC core skills from Black Hills. I'm a student. Shall apply for interest. Hey, first of all, don't apologize for asking questions. That's what we're here for. I'm glad that you're reaching out. And this is a lot of good work. Completed 90% TryHackMe security. Awesome. You've done CCNA. That's a huge leg up. Doing your CCNA networking. Oh boy. I acquired my networking knowledge through the School of Hard Knocks, meaning I was given an organization and I had to network it with Cisco equipment and I didn't know how, so I had to learn. Including VLANs and all sorts of other fun stuff. But if you have your CCNA and understand how networking works, and especially understand networking at the at the layer 2 and layer 3 level, that's a huge leg up. You're a student, you apply for internship. I think you complete the CH. You're in great shape. That's fantastic. I think you have lots of what folks are going to be looking for. The CEH really helps you out. In terms of where you'd be looking for internships, I don't really know where you are like geographically or where you'd be looking, but I think you're in a good spot even to apply for not just internships but jobs. Especially right now, right? You can get a remote analyst job. It's not impossible. Roadmap wise, if I'm looking at that, that's a lot of great IT skills. It's really fantastic. If I were to suggest kind of a next learning step for you, then it would definitely be in the programming domain. Get your Python up. If you don't have any Python programming capability, that would be kind of like the next level thing, and that'll really put you over the top. Hey Orbital, thank you so much for gifting that sub. But in terms of what else to do with applying for internships, things like that, it's if you want to be a SOC analyst, that's one road. But if you're looking for something else, that would be different. So I'm not gonna tell you like where to apply for stuff really. But I think that if you're looking at kind of the domain of skills, the next thing to really make you stand out is that programming experience. All right, we're going to add the URI path to the selected fields. Setting searches, reports, and alerts. Is that not where we just... Okay. Oh, advanced edit. Right. Advanced edit. Here we go. Oh, SANS courses. Quick note on SANS courses. The expectation is not that you pay for them. It is that your company pays for them. Yeah. One for 100. Look, I understand being scared. Yeah, I understand being scared, but the truth is that you have a lot of experience already. This is a lot of fantastic work that you've already done. You are well positioned. You really are. And the truth is, everybody's nervous when they start. Maybe keep that on the QT. Everybody is nervous when they start. Okay? But if you find the right place, you're going to find a supportive team that will fill in the gaps in your knowledge. But you have a lot. My suspicion is that you will be bringing more to the table than you think. And you will be surprised at what you know that other people do not. That's just looking at what I've seen you do so far. That's my guess. Look at how much you've already accomplished. You have reason to believe in yourself. display.events fields. We got to scroll down all the way to the display. Display.events.fields. Here we go. And we are changing this to URI path, or adding URI path to this list. The UTI path, that's slightly grosser. Is that just it? Yeah. By the way, I don't know if everybody knows this, but SANS also has something called the Work Study program. This is pretty cool. With the Work Study, basically you volunteer to help out at a SANS event, and it allows you to take SANS courses for a fraction of the price because you're volunteering to help out. Pretty cool. Okay, now we're gonna throttle and suppress on the URI path for 10 minutes. Here we go, we're gonna throttle. Suppressing results containing field value. We're gonna do it for 10 minutes. Yeah. And then we just view our triggered alerts, and that would be up here. Activity, triggered alerts. So this seems excessive because they're all unique, right? We have different URI paths. Then we're getting our first alerts here. Okay, finally some actual stuff to look at. So let's click this view results here and see what we got going on. So what is the IP address? Notice that this is not super well parsed, right? We don't have a whole lot of other fields that we can pull out here. Like we might want to better parse this and get, the IP address. What is the IP address of a user who is triggering? Did they just not like that one? Okay. What is the URI path? Vacationplanner.log. Oh, the API endpoint. Let's just go last 24 hours. And where match URI path API. Interesting. Just search for API. What are you looking for? What is happening? But, what is the URI path of the API endpoint, which returns a 500 internal server error? Alright, just slash login? Yes, okay. Alright, neat. That was alright. Some of it was a little finicky. Alright, with that, we are ready to head over. We'll end this module. And with that, we are ready to head over to TryHackMe, which I have up and running because I learned my lesson from last time. And we're going to dive right back into this investigation. And we're in the 200 series questions. And we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, question 5, which they want us to do with this. Which will first go to the actual Splunk instance. Is it running on a different port? I think it is. It's like on 8443 or something. 8,000. That machine's running. It's just on a different port. Actually completed internship, but it was basically I didn't do anything actual in a real project. Got too much more to explore and learn about it. Was it full semester? Yeah, your English is great. Whereas my Hindi is non-existent. I feel like such a chump growing up in the United States and like the expectation of being monolingual. It's no good. I can get by handle the offensive laundry. Why are you not loading? We might have to kill the box and start it over. That's fine. I'll take this moment to remind folks that Hack Summer has started. And that on Wednesdays for the next 5 weeks, we are doing a deep dive into the Linux operating system. So that'll be 5 p.m. Pacific on Wednesdays from now until August 11th. We did our intro session last week. It was just sort of an intro, the background of Linux and setting up our virtual machine that we're going to use throughout the course. And then this coming Wednesday, we're going to be doing the command line. So if you've ever wanted to really get your hands dirty with the Linux terminal, but weren't sure where to start, this is where to start. So come join us. We'll be live on Twitch, of course, but the videos are also being cross-recorded to YouTube, so you can visit them there if you missed them. All right. Maybe this is actually up now. Thanks, Nightbot. Ooh. Oh, did we finally get there? We finally got there. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get varying advice on the OSCP. People are going to have different takes on it and what you need, and it really depends. The truth is that SOC analyst is a pretty broad term, I'm finding. I don't think it's necessary. If you want to go for it, go for it. It's never going to hurt you to have offensive skills. Okay. So we're going to do index equals bots v2. What was the attacker IP? Right. So we're doing this search. That's where we're starting. Index equals bots v2. And then source IP equals that. And we're going to go all time. What are we doing, Splunk? Not running super well is what we're doing. That's not great. You don't want to see 404s happen in your Splunk instance. Oof. Yeah, this thing is just not playing ball. Maybe it's me. Oh, maybe it is me. VPN appears to be up. Okay, now it's running. Taking its sweet time, which may be because this is a pretty broad search. Okay, we got 3 events. Nope, 5. No, 136. All right. We have a bunch of events, most of them on August 26th, 2017. So we can focus our search in there a little bit more. And what SQL function is being abused on the URI path? Yeah, this is the part that we kind of... First of all, let's take a look at the source types that we're seeing here for this. Just the one, just from Suricata. That's interesting. Let's stop this search if we can. And we will do, yeah, just August 26th, 2017. Eight, 26, 2017, and 08, 26, 2017. Apply. Go. I said apply. Okay. Something is up with my VPN, and I think I know what it is. Yeah. I think I did a stupid. That's entirely possible. I just messed with the Splunk instance, and if so, we'll deal with that. But I think the issue I was having, yeah. Wow. I have two computers, right? And one of them is the laptop, and the other is this desktop. And I do TryHackMe stuff on both of them, and so it's the same VPN connector, right? So if I have TryHackMe VPN live on my laptop and it's open, right, and it's working, then my desktop is not going to get the traffic because it had the connection first. So, or it'll split between the two, interestingly. So I think that's what was going on. The laptop is now closed. I'm still really having trouble accessing this. So we will kill it and bring it back up. one more time. And if we can't get that going, then we'll just have to pivot and adapt. I always have a plan B. Hey, by the way, I don't know if anyone's checked out their channel rewards, but there is something up at the 3000 Cybers level that might be a fun diversion for a Saturday morning. Or anytime on Saturday, since we have such a global audience. Oh, there it is. All right, Orbital. We'll do it. Let me get it sorted. Let me try one more time to access this thing, and then we'll get the B&B game going. I'm wondering if like the resources for this machine got downplayed or something like that. In which case we'll have to, if we want to continue this room, we'll have to do it on Cyber Defenders, right? We'll have to download the VM. I mean, it's working, but it is slow. Right? So it was index equals BOTS v2. And then source IP equals that. And then it was just date range between 08/26/2017 and 08/26/2017. Apply. Search that up. See how that does. And do we have the URI path field on here? No, we do not. This is all just NetFlow, right? This is just Suricata stuff. Interesting. What if I take out the field? We just see it other places. There we go. Let's see pan traffic. Nope. Pan traffic won't have it for us. Stream TCP maybe? No. That's outbound, right? If I look for the dest IP, it's all stuff going to it. And our stream IP is really not that helpful. All right, what sort of fields do I have all across the board here? I have user, I have this is sysmon. That's pretty wild. .vulture.com. Interesting. Yeah, Network Connect. I don't know what they're looking for, though, in terms of the SQL function being abused on the URI path. It's also being used with the URI path. We found /member.php. Let's get that going too. And this is from the stream HTTP, which is where we kind of were before. And this doesn't have... Wow, that's a lot. Hey, Keys. All right, Keys, you're here. Okay, so now I have to redeem. I have to make good on Orbital's redemption of the B&B game. So we're going to pause on this Splunk for a minute, and let's play some backdoors and breaches. All right. In order to make this work, menu, configuration, graphics. Let me check. There we go. Let me move this over here. Redo full screen. And let's go ahead and load this up. Alrighty. Camera mode, top down. And now, yeah. Hey, chat, choices for dice color before we go any further. Yes, no? Looks good, orange or purple. All right, some Ubuntu fans out here, I guess. White. Tell you what, I'll make one of them silver. Little metallic going on. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and shuffle our incident deck here. Oh, R is shuffle for cards? I didn't know that. Now I know that. Okay, so first thing I got to do is draw one of these per situation. So we're looking at, is this a free download? No, well, kind of. Gromit, this is Tabletop Simulator, which is like 20 bucks on Steam, and then the game itself is free. So Initial Compromise, Pivot and Escalation, C2 and Exfil, and Persistence. So let's go ahead and draw one of those, and draw one of those. Now, here's the part that I can't let you see, So let me switch over to Talking Head real quick, because I need to flip over the incident cards, and basically I screenshot it so that I can see it and create a... Oh yeah, this is going to be a fun one. Greaser, thanks so much for the follow. I basically screenshot it and like put it in Paint just so I have the incident in front of me to create the story of the incident. So for those of you who haven't played Backdoors and Breaches before, here's the deal. There's been an incident at our organization, right? We're on the blue team, and I'm going to help tell the story of the incident, help provide you information with what you know, what you haven't found out so far, right? I'll act as like the dungeon master, the game master for this incident. You have, let me go back to the live scene now that I have the cards over. So your objective is to uncover these cards. You have to discover what the initial compromise was. Yeah, okay, I have that set to 90. Your job is to discover the initial compromise, how the attackers pivoted and escalated, whatever persistence mechanism they used, and their command and control and exfiltration. To do so, you have, and we'll draw these now, several tools, procedures they're called, at your disposal. And the ones that are in the blue boxes are a little bit special. We can talk about how they're special. Now, the other thing is that you have 10 rounds to do this, and we'll talk through the gameplay of how this works. All right, and let's flip these over. All right, so your procedures are something like this. You have server analysis, which is like understanding the baselining of your servers and using it to discover anomalies. User and entity behavior analytics, which is looking for anomalies in user behavior, where they're logging in, where they're logging in from, things like when they're logging in, things like that. Hey, Smash 8Tap, thanks so much for the follow. Endpoint security protection analysis. This is, think of it as your aggregated EDR logs, right? So endpoint detection and response tools like Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike, FireEye, whatever you have going on, those logs are going to a centralized place. And it would also be true for like sysmon logs, things like that, okay? So that's what endpoint security protection analysis is. SIM logs, similar, but from not just endpoints, right? So if you have logging coming from firewalls, all sorts of other stuff, your HTTP proxies, any of those, they're going into Splunk, which we were just using, or maybe your Elk stack, other kinds of security information and event management systems. So you have those. NetFlow, or network threat hunting. So packet captures and NetFlow, that's what we're looking at here with these procedures. So again, you use these procedures, you'll have to choose one of these, and these procedures are going to be how you attempt to detect the different components of the attack, right? So I know which one of these will detect which, and if you succeed, we'll roll a d20 to find out. Nice, nat 20. But if you roll one of these to detect and you succeed, we will uncover one of these cards and discuss how it worked and why it worked. If it didn't work, right, we'll also discuss how it didn't work, why that might be true. And again, we have 10 rounds to make this happen, so we'll keep the counter here. Okay, now, if you roll the die, we're going to choose, and I'll show you how we're going to choose the procedure to go through each turn. But if you choose a procedure and it fails, it will become unusable for 3 turns, and I'll tap the card for those of you who played Magic or play Magic. So that's the deal. So we talked about some of these procedures. The ones up here, you'll get a +3 to your roll. These are, think about these as the procedures in your organization that you know cold. You do them every day. The ones down here, they're still in the run book, maybe, but you don't use them as much. I'm also going to disable, I'm going to take 2 of these procedures away, because they don't have a direct impact on the game. Crisis management, which is really important, but doesn't have if we're talking about just the technical, like, analyst level, we're not going to have a whole lot of impact there. The same is going to be true for isolation. We'll talk about why. Isolation is a preventative measure, not a detective measure. Isolation is really important for your network engineering team, and for locking down a system once you've figured out something is a problem. But unfortunately, the way the game is structured right now, isolation doesn't have any direct gameplay impact. So I'm going to take it off so that we don't have any confusion about what can actually do detections. So the other procedures that we have at our disposal are right here. So we talked about the ones up here. The other ones we have: cyber deception. Think about this as like honeypots, honey nets that you can actually, have tripwires inside your network that the attackers will come across, and you'll get alerting of their behavior based on what you've set up for them to fall into. Endpoint analysis. Think of this as almost like digital forensics, or like going deep on an endpoint, getting all the event logs, right? Deep Blue CLI, maybe using things like Loki even to detect IOCs directly on an endpoint, right? So you have an alert, you have an idea that something might be going wrong on an endpoint. This is where you go onto it and really, really extract all the information that you can from it. You can also call a consultant, okay? So there are consultant cards over here that will, give you a little bit of a boost in the game. Memory analysis. This is another forensic procedure, right? It's a little bit deeper, a little bit more in-depth than an endpoint analysis, because you have to do a memory dump and then analyze it. So that would be using tools like Volatility or Velociraptor to get that memory image and then analyze exactly what's going on. And then finally, this is separate from your SIM, although it may not be, in fact, in your environment in real life, your firewall log review. So for firewall logs, right, this is really, really helpful if you're curious about what's going on at your network edge, right? How did they get in? How are they getting out, right? How are they crossing that boundary between internal and external? Firewall logs are going to be great for that. Okay, with our procedures explained, what we're going to do to decide what to do for each turn is I have a polling app, and let me show you what it looks like. So we'll just do a test poll right now. So the poll is up, and all you have to do is either put a number down for the numbered choice, or type in the choice as you see it on the screen, and that will put that in chat. That'll commit your choice to the poll. So we're going to vote, for like 20 seconds or 30 seconds for each procedure as we explain it, right? So we put down 5, and that was 1, 2, 3, 4. That's endpoint analysis, right? Yep. So all you have to do is put that down. The results will show up here, and majority wins, and we'll choose that as the procedure. That's the idea. And if I need to move a card around, let me know. Yep. So the poll in Twitch, unfortunately, has like limited choices. It's on the screen, Angel. Yeah, I can't use the Twitch poll for this because it doesn't have enough choices. I'm pretty sure. I can't do all of the procedures. So I'm doing it this way. Exactly right. You can also literally just type netflow and it'll work. Right, so. And if anybody wants to see a card more closely, just let me know, and I will, zoom it in so that it's easier to see while the choices are up on the screen. What I'd like to do eventually is get this going in a voice chat in the Discord. I just haven't quite figured out how best to do that yet. Okay, so that's going to be how the poll works. I'm going to kill the poll for now. And let's talk about the scenario. I will give you kind of where we're starting. Love it. Okay. So we always start one of these from an alert or from some sort of notification that you get in the SOC that something is wrong. And your notification today is that after setting up the correct Splunk alerts, you or your SIM of choice, you received an alert that you're getting a really, really high number of Windows Event ID 4625s in your environment. Chat, what is Windows Event ID 4625? Going once, going twice. Let's talk about it. Windows Event ID 4625 is an account failed to log on. Yep, it's one of those that you really want to know. All right, now failed to log on. This is net logon, right? This isn't Kerberos. This is straight up Windows authentication. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it dropped a little bit. Hopefully it'll go back up soon. Yeah, I see that my upload is a little low. Yep, I see that. Hopefully a temporary situation. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's looking like it's a little all over the place right now. We'll see if it gets any better. I'm hoping this improves. Okay. So, you have received an alert for event ID 4625 that there are way too many of them happening. How those wind speeds looking. You know what? I'm not hearing a lot of wind actually right now, but who knows? All right, so you have that as the alert that there's a high number of Windows Event ID 4625s, a lot of failed logons. That's what you know so far. There's just a spike in that event ID. So you have a lot of tools here at your disposal that you can use to look at, you know, the rest of that situation. I'm going to bring the poll down a little bit so that it's easier to see the screen. Yeah. All right, so let's start the poll. What shall we do with high numbers of 4625s? Remember that the procedures up at the top are server analysis, UEBA, right? Endpoint security protection analysis, our SIM, and NetFlow. These are all options that we have that have +3. So when we choose this, you'll get a +3 to that roll. Maybe I'll put this bottom left. Nope. Or I will, but it, no, you know what? I'll put it down here, but I'll move it all the way up at the top. That's better. All right, we need those votes. Talk it out in chat too. Okay, if we have high numbers of Windows failed logons, what are the kinds of things that we would want to check? Where we want to, what kind of information would we want to know next? Think like an investigator. To kick it off, you might want to think about who, what, when, where. Remove isolation from poll. Yeah, good call. I will do that. So looks like firewall logs is currently in the lead. All right, Keys. Are we doing anything? Yeah, we're voting. Right now, firewall logs are the first thing. So, Keys, can you talk about why you're saying firewall logs? Mm. Check if the service is down. No other successful logons. So what I might think about doing, so we've got one vote for firewall logs. We'll go ahead and try it. Well, you might have SIM for logging. We know that that's where the alert came from. Yes. Oh, so you said SOSIM for logging, not no SIM. Yeah. If that's your vote, go ahead and put it in. Incidentally, that would be mine as well. Yeah, sorry. Sorry the chat is lagging. All right, let's go with SIM for now. I'm going to stop this poll. Okay, so we're going to do SIM. And what this hopefully would expose is exactly who or when the logons are happening. That's right. We want to check the source and endpoint if the user successfully logged on before, and also which service is involved. That's exactly right. So let's roll the silver die here. That wasn't really a roll. Okay, so 13, and sim was an owned procedure, so that's actually +3. So that's a success. So with your success on reviewing your sim logs, you've discovered that it was not a single user, right, where you were seeing a lot of these issues. You were seeing them across the board, and specifically, basically you're looking at the result of a password spray. Against the rest of the organization from a compromised system. So you're seeing, is the source internal? Yes, in this case, the source is internal. So, oh man, chat really was lagging. I think we're doing like a lot better right now on frames. But yeah. So you've discovered an internal password spray. So you have the source of the password spray, single system, and you have, yeah. And you have many destinations, okay? That's what you've discovered so far. So now you have a source to investigate. You don't necessarily know how the attacker got into the system, right? How they got into the environment, but you know that from internally, you have password spraying taking place. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh the chat, see if we can do any better there. All right. So with that information that we have an internal attacker now, and we have a source, now we can start thinking about where we go next. Yep. D&D vibes indeed. So let's go ahead and start the poll. Yeah, I think we're doing better now. We're out of the upload bandwidth canyon. Nope, you didn't. Okay, so if you missed the poll and the roll, here's the deal. You have discovered that there was an internal password spray. And so you have a single source, multiple destination for these logon attempts across multiple users. So now you need to go find out more about what's going on. So you have a target, right? You have a source to investigate, which means, you know, there are certain tools that you might want to consider. Things like maybe endpoint security protection analysis, endpoint analysis, those might come into play since you have a target. Does it have to be one of the top cards? No, Gromit, it does not have to be one of the top cards. You can choose any of these. However, the ones on the top have +3. What valid actions are there? Is it known internal pen test scanner? I'm going to say no, it's not known, right? You don't know. It's not known activity, right? This is a so far a valid alert. So you are still investigating. Yeah, there are some questions that you want to ask yourself. Absolutely, great point. You want to ask, like, is this activity expected, right? Is this actually weird? Does the source, is the source like your Nexpose scanner or something else like that you know is benign and you haven't filtered out? Those are really great questions to ask. All right, that's another vote for firewall logs. Another vote for firewall logs. I want to see what kind of traffic the source endpoint has. Absolutely. Great instinct. Okay. Going once. Going twice. Alrighty. Firewall logs it is. Does anybody have a dice color preference? Yep, you want to see if this is a new issue or if there are any previous alerts. Blue? Yeah, we can do blue. Who cares? Let's just change the orange to blue. How's that for customer service? Oh, wow. Almost a terrible roll became excellent. Okay, so with your 17, here's what I'm going to tell you. Where can you get this game instead of the physical card game? So this is Tabletop Simulator. Okay, so you can get Tabletop Simulator on Steam. Not quite a crit. Something actually does happen on crits and crit successes and crit failures. You get injects, which we haven't actually done. Okay, so with your 17, here's the deal. Not only do you have, you have a Palo Alto firewall, and your Palo Alto firewall is also doing a little bit of, you are doing HTTPS decryption. So with that, you're able to see HTTP headers coming from this source. And what you notice after really careful investigation, is you're noticing something a little bit funny in the HTTP headers here, where there's a lot of stuff going to like Microsoft.com, but it seems like it's not the kind of stuff that you'd usually identify going to Microsoft.com from that source. And looking at the host header, you discover that they are attempting and succeeding to use domain fronting to hide their traffic. So domain fronting, right? If you have some content delivery networks, some CDNs, do this thing where regardless of the domain request, right? The host header is actually what governs the routing of the traffic. So it can look like it's going to Microsoft.com, but if the host header is set up differently, then it'll actually point it to that location instead. So that is how domain fronting can work. And that is exactly what's going on here. So your firewall log review has revealed domain fronting is C2, and we do know that Cobalt Strike is one of the common C2 frameworks that will use domain fronting. So you have your C2, you've got 2 of the 4 cards revealed, so nice work, everybody. You still don't know how the initial compromise took place, and you still don't know how persistence is getting maintained, but you have your pivot and escalation, and you have your C2 and exfil. Very nice work indeed. All right, so we're back up to our procedures. This is the point where you figured out what's going on. You have kind of a live situation. Now, I will say also that in a real live SOC, at this point, if you found evidence of this, one of the first moves you'd be is like lock that down, right? Contain it. But we're looking at kind of an investigative mode here. We're trying to find out the entire story. So yes, on the side you'd be locking it down, but we also need to find out a little bit more about the incident. So to find out more about what actually is taking place, where might we go next? I'll put the poll back up. Remember that we have some really interesting tools up here, especially the ESPA and endpoint analysis. Memory analysis might be cool. We've done firewall log. That was very successful for us. Don't lock it down too quickly. We want to collect evidence and how it got there and other endpoints involved. So, Angel, I want to talk about that real quickly. It's a really, really tricky balancing act, depending on the kind of attack. Because if you're talking about like a live attacker and potentially a ransomware attacker, isolation before full investigation, like, it really depends. It may actually be worth it to isolate first. It really, really depends. You want to limit, yes, investigation matters, but you also want to limit the spread. But you also want to know enough about the actual incident so that you lock it down. Neon, take out the exclamation point and you'll get that vote. Thank you. Yeah, so it's a really tricky balancing act. We run up against this pretty frequently. It's like, when do we contain it? When don't we? One thing I haven't ever seen, but I keep worrying about it, is like a dead man switch where, you know, a situation where there's an infection, and as soon as the infection detects that it's been, you know, isolated, it fires off its malicious payload. I haven't seen that, but I'm super worried about it. Whoa. That was weird. Thanks so much, ISP. Sorry about that, friends. Not sure why the stream decided to die at that very second, but looks like we're back. So, yeah. All right, we still have the poll going, and it looks like we have... the question was, what kind of endpoint protection do we have? Yeah, I saw the question. Let's say we have some sort of enterprise EDR, whether it's CrowdStrike or whatever, but we have EDR information coming to us. So it's a semi-mature environment, at least. So we have, and the other question was from Keys, which was endpoint security protection analysis versus endpoint analysis. Endpoint security protection analysis is that aggregated data from your endpoint detection and response tool, right? So you can think about this as, you know, really detailed information, but it's coming into a centralized console with automated alerting, things like that. That's really what you're talking about with endpoint security protection analysis. It could also be your antivirus console as well. Come on, autofocus, do your thing. With endpoint analysis, this is not looking at a centralized console. That's getting onto the endpoint and doing deeper investigation because you have a reason to do so. So endpoint analysis is a vote there. Okay. Looks like endpoint analysis has it. So we will go with endpoint analysis. Remember that you don't have a +3 for this roll. But yeah, pretty good one. All right, let's go with endpoint analysis. Yeah, usually, if I'm going to isolate it, I want to at least do a light touch of endpoint analysis before I do that. So that might look like, pulling a package from Redline Collector or doing, some sort of Windows log collection, something like that. All right, let's roll them bones. Oof! Critical failure. Ah, fantastic. All right, so because we got a crit fail, we get to do an inject. So an inject is an unexpected event that complicates the incident. Oh, I love it. So data exfiltration, and the data that has been exfiltrated is now uploaded to Pastebin. Internal sensitive data is now on Pastebin, and your customers are now informed of the attack by the media. So if you weren't in straight up incident response mode before, yep, time to do it. In your run book, right? If you hadn't set up a war room before, maybe it's time to do that. You definitely have to talk about your legal team and PR, right? You have to have a communications point person. So now this is no longer an internal issue. We'll toss that right here in our inject section. Sucks. And because it failed, the card is disabled for 3 turns. Because now you have to deal with the PR fiasco. All right. Could you link me to this on Steam later or in Discord? Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, here you go. For anybody who wants to play, go ahead and just download it from Steam there. It is, it's a paid game, but then this card, this game mode is free. You just search for games and look for BHIS, and you should be able to find it. Okay, let's get the poll going. Time for our next procedure. Now, we're not totally out of options for the endpoint, even without endpoint security protection analysis. There are a few other things that we could do. Oh, I should take segmentation out too. All right, so other things that might be useful here on the endpoint, right? We obviously have memory analysis, right? We still can look at endpoint security protection analysis. UEBA, we know that there was user activity, right? So we might actually want to take a look at how users were behaving across the board, or that user was behaving across the board, and that might be useful. And then server analysis, if servers were involved, right? If you have the baselines for those, you might be able to detect something interesting there. All right, Keys votes for UEBA, or votes for endpoint security protection analysis. Okay. Are we our own customer or external customer? Good question. For this scenario, you're internal SOC for an organization. So you're not like a managed SOC service. This is a company's own blue team. User entity behavior analytics. This is something that you can pay a lot of money for in Splunk, but there are other tools as well, like Logon Tracer and OpenUBA. Think of this as like pattern recognition and anomaly detection for user activity. So it baselines, it takes some time to get right, but it baselines user activity, when and where and to what users log on. And then when changes in that occur, you'll get alerting based on those changes. You're going to do NetFlow. Interesting. Zeek would be one, NetFlow. Oof. I can see that I'm getting an unstable stream again. All right. Let's we have, so from endpoint analysis, do we know anything that we found out? That's a good question. What did you do? So endpoint analysis was a critical fail, remember? So no, you did not find out anything. You can try it again later, but for now, no dice. Nice, Kenikos. Well, let's see. We are in the middle of a Backdoors and Breaches game, and we have two cards revealed. We have password spraying and domain fronting, and we're looking for persistence and the initial compromise. And I need votes. I also need a more stable stream, but I don't know if I'm going to get that wish. Yep, there's the wind. Great. Yep. Is this internal threat or not? Yeah, we don't know because we haven't figured out an initial compromise. All very good points. All right. So we have a vote for endpoint security protection analysis, and we have one vote for Zeek, although it's not showing up because Gromit didn't put it in right. I'll put it in for him. Anybody want to play tiebreaker? So do you want to kill, from an incident response standpoint, do you want to kill a connection from the external entity? Probably, yes. And isolate internal compromise. Once you're comfortable enough knowing that you have the whole situation figured out. But at this moment, I would argue that you don't, because endpoint analysis didn't succeed, right? So you didn't get a whole lot of information yet from the endpoint. So you're still just working from one layer of information. And so I would wait to get a little bit more before you're able to totally lock that down. So you understand what to lock down. All right. Well, I'm going to play tiebreaker here then, if that's okay. And I'm going to go for UEBA. For one thing, we have a +3 on it, so that's pretty useful. And it's going to tell us a little bit more about what these users are doing and any anomalies that we might detect. Oh, there's Neon with endpoint security protection analysis. All right, I will cede my vote then to endpoint security protection analysis. All right, so you guys are checking that out. Let's go for that roll then. So let's do it. Let's turn off the poll. And let's try not the die that gave us a crit fail. All right, so 11 plus 3, 14, that's a success. Luckily, you have sysmon logs coming into your endpoint security protection analysis console. And what that means is you're able to discover registry information. And with that and your source from your initial detection, you are able to discover that the attacker, using the compromised user that you've already discovered, is establishing persistence through use of registry keys. So very nice work. You now have a persistence mechanism and something that you can then search across other endpoints for as well if you wanted to do that. All right, so congratulations on finding the persistence mechanism. We have one left to do. So we still need to look for initial compromise. So you got to find out how this initial user was compromised. And so at this point, if you're thinking about initial compromise, you want to think about, obviously, potentially user information, but you also want to think about, Neon, go ahead and try like reload the screen. All right, we have one more to do. And we're looking for the initial compromise, remember. So we have some options here. We have firewall, of course. We have UEBA. Server analysis might be useful in this case, depending on what servers we're talking about. Maybe web servers, right? That are public. But it could have been a phishing email. It was the initial compromise as well. Okay. In the interest of moving this along, I'm going to put in a vote for a UEBA. Oh, I'm sure it's my problem, Neon. I'm sorry about it. Yeah, I'm going to take the UEBA route just because we have this user information, right? And we want to see if there are any other anomalies going on with that. And I'm sorry the chat's a little bit behind, but let's give this a shot here. I hate taking away agency that way. 9 plus 3 would constitute a success for that one. And so, because UEBA is a little bit OP, we got server analysis. Let's talk about server analysis, because let's roll for that one too. Nat 20. All right, nice job, Neon. So with let's get an inject here just to see. Ooh, fun. This is not the first time, or this isn't the first time, it won't be the last that you had backdoors. Welcome back, Angel. So interesting, we got successes for both server analysis and UEBA, because I was kind of trying to move this along, but yeah, server analysis is a great one. Yeah. So with server analysis, you were able to discover that your initial compromise was credential stuffing against a web server. And UEBA would have found that as well. So, congratulations, you have found the entire chain here. Couple of things. So you're able to discover that the server was compromised through credential stuffing, right? And basically just find some known emails and